Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a good one today. And welcome to this webinar organized by the EATG's Aging with HIV project. Today, in this webinar, we have organized this to follow up on the conference that we held in Bucharest on the 19th and 22nd of January 2017. This second international conference that we had of the Aging and with HIV project, as I said, in January this year in Bucharest, Romania, focused on children and adolescents living and aging with HIV. We had 104 attendees from 30 different countries from all parts of Europe and Central Asia, the US, Africa, and Latin America as well, and 51% of our participants at the conference were under 30 years of age, while 34% of them were under 26. So I think that was really quite successful. My name is Tamás Beretsky. I'm the Communications Officer of the EATG. I also live with HIV, and I will be moderating this webinar for you. Let me start with a couple of housekeeping announcements and points. First of all, please always use your headset. If you have any questions, please use the chat box function on the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel, where you are logged into this webinar. Also, please always use the mute button when you're not speaking so that we don't have unnecessary noise. We have 60 minutes for this webinar. We will have 4 presentations and then a discussion at the end. The presentations will be by Tom, Bogdan, Anna, and Daniel, all of them young people who participated in the conference, and they will talk about their experience and follow up on the conference itself. There will be a recorded version of the webinar that will be uploaded to YouTube within a couple of days, and then it will be shared widely on the EATG website, on the Aging with HIV website, and through all of our social media outlets that you hopefully follow on Facebook and Twitter. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tom, Bogdan, Anna, and Daniel. All of them, as I said, were participating in the conference, living with HIV, and they will report on their experience. And I would like to ask Tom to start with his presentation. Tom, you take it away.
Thanks, Tamás. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So I'm from Birmingham in the UK, and I was diagnosed with HIV back in 2011. I was really thrilled to be invited along and to get a place to the Aging for Children and Adolescents with HIV/AIDS conference in Romania, as it's young people's rights with HIV is something I'm very passionate about and work about a lot here in the UK, but haven't necessarily known a lot about across Europe. Next slide. So my main takeaway from the entire conference was a brand new appreciation and understanding how different the HIV landscape, the context is across Western Europe, Central Europe, and the Eastern Europe and Central Asia area. It couldn't be more different from region to region. But then we spoke to people who have very different stories about what HIV is in separate parts of their country. But what overrode the entire conference was just how inspiring a lot of the young people are that have taken their rights and their care into their own hands through activism, like Daniel and Anna. Daniel's done Teenagizer over in Ukraine, which is an incredible young person's movement for HIV. And it's something that feels sorely lacking over in the UK, where we've kind of come complacent with our level of care with the support and the rights afforded to people and young people living with HIV. But we also had a presentation from Caroline Foster from London, who talked about the challenges that young people face in transition from paediatric to adolescent to adult HIV care. Her clinic in London is a shining beacon of what transition care should look like. But in other regions of the UK and across Europe and the ECA, that model is a blue sky dream still, and it's something we should aim for. But it's something that I think from this conference we've seen a model that can work. We've taken ideas that can work in our areas, and hopefully we can convince decision makers in our regions and our parts of our country. I know personally I've been speaking to HIV commissioners here in Birmingham about Caroline Foster's transition and young persons clinic, and we're looking about how we can change our service to not necessarily mirror that, because that'd be a huge challenge, but to take some of the best practice from that. If we go next slide. So this is a bit what about on the previous slide, but it's the disparity of care. Tamas spoke to us about how there's only one HIV clinic in Hungary during the conference. Yemi, who's there on the right, spoke to us about how there are 3 in all of Panama. When I did a quick look in the UK, we've got close to 200 HIV clinics in the UK. And that comes with quite an amount of sort of almost guilt on my part, which I know it's not my fault, but it's a feeling that perhaps those of us who have come from more privileged backgrounds have taken their eye off the ball on helping people in other regions, in other countries, in other parts of our own country. I know that in some of the countries we talked about, they don't have viral load testing. So we had a huge discussion about undetectable equals untransmittable, but what does that mean in a country, in a context where you don't even know your viral load? Part of that was due to policy and cost saving, part of that was due to some countries can't arrange the cold transport for bloods. And the undetectable equals untransmittable revolution and just health generally are passing a lot of young people by because they don't have access to what are considered fairly standard basic routine tests in some of Western Europe. And one of the other things we talked about was the access to different medications. Some countries are quite spoilt in what medications they have access to on National Health Service or whether they have to pay. Other countries are still dealing with medications that, whilst effective, aren't necessarily as easily tolerated from 10-15 years ago. And there's certainly, I think, campaigning and lobbying we can do as a region, as a continent, to increase access to more modern, more tolerated medication for young people living with HIV, but all other people living with HIV. Next slide. And then this was my final slide. So we talked about so many things, so many differences we had. Like I've mentioned, the differences in number of clinics, what medications we have access to, whether you're born with HIV, as we discussed the huge crisis of young people living with HIV in Romania from the 80s and 90s, or whether you are infected later in life like the majority of people in Western Europe are. But we all want the same thing. We all want to have love in our lives. We all want to be respected. We all want happiness, and we all want healthy sex lives. And I don't think, there's anything that isn't held by every single person living with HIV on that slide. How we get to it, I think, are very different challenges, but I think what I've learned from conferences is that we can all work together to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for this and for sharing your insight. And you referred to Romania and the problems and the issues there, which we know have been really pressing for decades now. So I'm happy to introduce Bogdan, who is from Romania and who has also been working as an HIV activist for several years now, was also there at the conference. So Bogdan, take it away.
Hello. Okay, my name is Bogdan, as Tamas told it. I'm from Romania, and I've been working with people with HIV for more than, 3 years as a job pay, but more than 6 years volunteering and campaigning for people with HIV and with people with HIV. All right, regarding the conference, because I have education in psychology, obviously my individual highlights were referring to psychological aspects of this conference. And to me, it was interesting to say the relationship between having HIV and having, say, cognitive issues or other psychological issues as depression, anxiety, and things like this. So I was interested to say these things. Another point was the optimization debate, which was really interesting to me. And I saw the complexity that is behind the decision of giving some sort of medicine to kids, to newborn, to adolescents, and to young people. It's quite a big difference. Again, I said something about mental health. My preparation in psychology caught my attention. And strictly referring to the conference, what was very cool, in my opinion, was the mixture of the ages that was proportionate and good. As Tamas told you at the beginning, we're around 30% of the young people. And in my view, without having any statistics, was pretty equal also the number of people that were middle-aged and I don't know if they were third age. I think there were very few. But it was good combination. Please, next slide. Okay, what I learned generally, if you take care of yourself, if you take probably your medication, then as far as I understood, there's no reasons to worry about how you develop cognitively and generally psychologically. Then it's difficult to adjust the treatment according to the age. That was another thing I learned. And I really like the part of the conference where people shared their experience in their country, both from East of Europe and Central Asia and West of Europe. And obviously, I tried to keep in mind all the positive examples I received and all the bad or negative experiences I received, so I would know how to apply them in my country. Next slide, please. I think I am aware on the fact that there's really a lot of things to do in terms of how we should treat kids and newborn. So I'd like to know that this conference and conferences like this would really stimulate the research that should be done in this area, not only for HIV but also for other things. And as I said in the previous slide, adaptation of positive examples and negative. I don't know why I didn't say this. of care for people with HIV from countries that practice them to countries that do not practice them but would like to do this. I think that this is my presentation. Thank you for your patience and for listening.
Thank you, Bogdan, very much. And also, I think that there remains still a lot of important points that we need to discuss, and this, of course, this project continues, and we will go on and monitor your generation, but also people as they grow older with HIV. And in this context, and because we have such a huge problem with HIV in Romania, we also have another speaker from that country. She's Anna. Anna, would you like to start with your presentation and also say a couple of words about what you do in the HIV field?
Yes, thank you, Tamas. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. Of course, that this is a nickname because I'm trying to protect my identity. I'm 28 years old, and I'm working as a peer educator and also as a coordinator of volunteers in an HIV NGO in Romania, in Bucharest. I've been living with HIV for 10 years already. I've been diagnosed in 2007, but I'm part of the cohort of babies infected during the communism years. Personally, the highlight of the conference was the fact that I was offered the opportunity of being one of the speakers and be able to speak out my journey as a young woman living with HIV in Romania in the same room with clinicians, researchers, and other peers. I was really touched and inspired by Anna's story and the young people from Teenergizer. Danny is also here, so thank you, Danny, for all your inspiration. Next slide, please. It was one of the most empowering conferences that I have attended, not only because we were 104 attendees from 30 different countries and 5 continents, like you already mentioned, but also because I was happy to meet so many young people just like me that wanted to be part in decision making, be heard and understood, because in the end we are the caretakers of tomorrow and our views need to be considered and taken seriously today. During Aging with HIV conference, the phase 2, we try to identify and raise awareness regarding the unmet cares need of people living with HIV and AIDS in a life cycle perspective within patients, community, researchers, health providers, and other stakeholders. And what I learned once again is, like Tom said already, and Bogdan, that if we will work together, we will increase the awareness and hopefully the prevention programs among young people. Next slide, please. Of course that it will be great if we would have similar conferences like this one in our own countries, in our mother tongue, because there are a lot of young people living with HIV that are less fortunate of speaking English, and it will be awesome if they can attend too. I would also like, as a result of this conference, to use the Facebook page and other social media channels to share our experiences and keep networking. Last but not least, it will be lovely to see in the future more opportunities for youth to speak up and be heard at HIV conferences. And thank you once again for this EATG. Thank you.
I thank you too. That's actually very interesting. Also, it's very empowering to see how many of you have been able to transition from being a patient into becoming an expert and a peer helper in your field. And you're right, actually Teenergizer is a very good example for this from the Ukraine, which is a group of young people living with and affected by HIV, who have gotten together and built this this strong new movement for peer support. And Daniel is here with us, and he will say a little more about his experience and also perhaps a little more about Teenagizer. So Daniel, it's your turn. Don't forget to unmute yourself. Okay, so Daniel is offline for some reason. Hopefully he will get back to us. In the meantime, while he's dialing in, let me then tell you a little more about what we know from Teenagizers. So these young people have gotten together with the help from their parents and from their helpers and peers, and they decided to take their own fate into their own hands and organize empowering sessions, trainings, and educational interventions for people living with HIV in the Ukraine. The epidemiological situation in the Ukraine is far from good, although there have been some tremendous results achieved over the last couple of years, which were mainly done by people living with HIV. And I can see that Daniel is back online again. So I give you the floor, Daniel, and you take it away from here.
Thanks, Tamas. I'm sorry, my connection was lost for a few minutes. So let me introduce myself again. I'm Daniel. Yes, you can just call me Danny if you will have any questions. And I live with HIV starting from my birth. So I live with HIV for 19 years old, and I'm the co-founder of charitable organization which is called the Teenagizer. It's called the Eurasian Union of Adolescent and Youth Teenagizer. And so I work in advocacy field, in advocacy sphere in Ukraine, in the Eastern Europe and Central Asia for about 2-3 years. So, and actually I did not, the presentation, I made some theses for me to tell you my own output from the conference in the Bucharest, Aging with HIV. And so I think let's move by the theses, and I will tell about them. So the first, there's some key points for me, and I'm sure that the clear result is when you retranslate some information to the risk group, to the how to say it, the key populations, and one of the most important information. The point for me was the researches which Tom told me about, and it was the theme on the conference. This theme on the conference, the point that undetectable means uninfectious. I knew a lot about the researches, and then after the conference, I googled a lot about this. When there was researches with a lot of couples which used discordant couples which were on therapy and were undetectable, and they practiced the unprotected sex, and then there was no infections for about 6 years. So what is the most important? The main issue, one of the main issues in Ukraine, it's the lack of information. I can't find a good doctor in Ukraine which would speak to adolescents about their HIV analysis. So, and teenagers, they just don't know anything about their own status. What does it mean, their analysis? And when I came back, I've provided this peer support group. There was about 10 HIV positive teenagers. It's still only in Kiev, and I told them a lot about this. So they understood that there's also the issue with the adherence. So when I told them to this, they started to fight their own fear. And well, as I monitored them, day by day, I guess. They are drinking their medicine very adhered, I mean. So this is, I mean, this is one of the mainest results for me personally. Well, the second is the engagement of the adolescents from occupied regions. As you might know, well, in Ukraine it's like civil war at the moment, and the Donetsk and Luhansk, it's occupied territories by Russian Federation. And so I was really glad to see in the conference adolescents, HIV positive adolescents from Donetsk with their, I mean, social worker or psychologist, I don't actually remember. Well, what is the result? Well, the first European AIDS treatment group. This is cool because it's a really hard situation with HIV and community mobilization on the eastern Ukrainian. So that was really important for me, and I still stay in touch for about every day with, if you might remember, the Ella. This is the girl from Donetsk, which shared her own story. And well, she promised me when we came back from the Bucharest to provide like peer support groups. I mean, to collect all the teenagers because they're not adherent to the peer support groups. And well, I know that she and her social worker, I mean, her colleague like this, they already provided few peer support groups last week. I mean, last month in February, and there was the results about 15 teenagers. Well, and I tried to get them by the Skype to stay with them by the Skype, but actually we had some troubles. So I'm sure that. The Ella shared with them a lot of experience. I mean, everything she heard on the Bucharest conference. So the next point is, I'll try to be brief. So ARV choice, I mean, what does it mean? Unfortunately, as I said, doctors don't speak to adolescents and they don't know about ARV, clearly nothing. So when I came back on this peer support group which I provided after Bucharest, I told them that you can choose the different schemes, but FI variants, because there are a lot of side effects, and almost every teenager he feels bad because of FI variants. Sorry. So, and I told them I'm not sure if someone already changed his scheme, but I think in future we can do it together. I can assist them. So the next point, if you remember, Ruslan Maluta from Geneva, from UNICEF office, had a presentation about testing among low and middle income countries among teenagers. I've lost the word in my presentation. Sorry. The point is, the Teenagizer has its pilot project in the region, in Russia, Georgia, and Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia, it's middle-income countries, and there is a lot of barriers on the low level, I mean law level, governmental level, which can't give quality access to teenagers for HIV testing. So Ruslan Maluta, after his presentation, shared me a lot of this experience, and we use it in our I mean project strategy at the moment. So the next slide, please. Yes, which is things which are very important to me. Well, in the mail which you sent to me about the webinar, there was the question about the next steps, what I personally think. So well, firstly, there was from Ukraine and from Yekaterinburg, from Russia, there was only HIV positive teenagers. I'm more than sure that we have to engage not only HIV positive teenagers, because this is the experience of our organization. We started as the HIV positive community, like me, Yana, and the others, but we understood that this is the self-stigmatizing, and we have to I mean, engage to communicate with the other adolescents, HIV negative adolescents, to fight stigma in a closed community, and then by this way, using this approach, we can show other people that HIV positive teenagers, they they are the same as HIV negative teenagers. I mean, at all. So yes, one of the steps. So it's the step to engage HIV negative activists too. I know a lot of activists in Ukraine which are working with teenagers, but they have a negative HIV status. So yes, the next step for if the EATG is gonna engage the youth from Eastern Europe. I mean, it has to be sort of the option of the translations, because Hiram and me and Christian, it was hard to listen to the conference, to work on it, and to translate to other adolescents. But we had the post meeting after the second day and after the third day as well with Hiram and me, and we discussed. We just introduced the HIV field to these teenagers, because they are I mean, they are new in this. They knew almost nothing. So we introduced them a lot, and the translators are very important. I mean, and the first is I mean the next slide. Yes. Oh, no, so wait. One of the points as well, it's the adapting the information. Yes. Well, what I personally think, the aging conference in Bucharest was really very professional. There was a lot of very interesting and useful information for me, because I'm for 3 years in this field and I know something about this. But as I already said, teenagers which know almost nothing, which I mean, going inside, they're not deep in this sphere. They could understand really little, a little percent of information. So we have to adapt the professional information to, I mean, to youth leaders, because they're not enough experience still. But for example, EATG as well, it's a good example, can give them their such experience while they're, I mean, if they will engage them. So that's what I think about the next steps. Is there any slides anymore? I don't remember the next slide, which is I'm still waiting. If there is not, probably yes, as I see. Can you text it in my chat? Okay. So I bet this is it. Yeah, that's all. I'll be glad to answer your questions if you have it. So thanks.
I thank you, Danny. This was actually very interesting and also quite thought-provoking, everything that you guys have said. Now, we have a questions and answers session, and before we go into that and before we discuss your questions or questions from the audience, I would like to ask one thing, and I know that the chair of the EATG's Training and Capacity Building Working Group, Damian Kelly, is with us. He's also a panelist of this or on this webinar. And I also know that the working group and this project, he's also been responsible for this particular part of the project, has been putting a lot of thought into exactly the points that you, Danny, raised about adapting all of this knowledge to the proper or to the right language, so that young people can also understand and follow whatever is going on. And I would like to ask, first of all, Damian, to say a couple of words about which directions you think we can go in the future in order to make this information more accessible, not just translating it into other languages, but also perhaps adapting this information to local settings or to lay people's language. So what's your view on this, Damian?
Hi, Thomas, and thanks. I think we need to rewind a little bit, because I think we need more basic education for younger people to understand the science language and the policy language. And certainly within the training group, we're looking at how we can do that and how we can roll some education programs out for younger people. And also taking not the size of this conference, but taking something a little bit smaller to the eastern region, which will be spoken in the regional language. We know translation was a very big problem for young people. But having said all that, I would really like to commend all of the young people who took part in this conference. The energy, the willingness, the knowledge that they already have, it was just outstanding.
I'm sorry, I didn't find my unmute button. Anyway, this is actually also, this points towards the continuation of the project, which I know that it's going to go on with a different age, with a different generation bracket. I also would like to ask and reflect back on what Tom said previously in his talk or in his presentation, which was about how you found it interesting, all these lived experiences, or the difference in the lived experiences of people living with HIV. How do you think, if you have perhaps any reflections on this, how do you think we can intensify this exchange of experience other than organizing conferences, which are usually very resource intensive and time consuming? Do you have any impressions on that, Tom?
Yeah, I completely agree that whilst conferences are great and inspiring and can kickstart things, they're not a sustainable way of making change. So I suggest possibly some sort of cross-Europe young persons working group with a specific remit on equality and equity of access to care, to medicines, to support. Young people that are actively embedded and active in the HIV sector in their countries or their regions, people who can influence decision makers, and hopefully we can share best practice and try and sort of level the playing field for people in the EU and the ECA.
All right. I also think that the use of social media is increasingly important in this regard, and all of you have been actually very, very good and very ardent users of social media. Right now, interestingly, there's also a conversation going on Twitter about this very webinar, and I know that one of the audience members has been tweeting intensively, and I thank him for this very much. And also, I wonder how we could perhaps facilitate, and I will ask this then from Bogdan or Anna, how we can facilitate a bigger outreach to Southern and Eastern Europe in terms of conveying information in Romanian or in other languages. Do you think that it's only about translations, or is it also about adapting this information to the local settings? It's a bit of a leading question, but I'm really curious about understanding what you think would be necessary from our side to be done, or to be done better. Anna, would you like to reflect on this perhaps?
Oh, yes, it's a bit of a tricky question, a bit difficult to answer, because I was thinking of what to suggest, and I don't have anything, to be honest, in mind. I mean, the peer education works really well, and I've seen that with my colleagues. But other than that, adapting the information and having small groups of peer support, honestly, I don't know. I don't have, maybe Bogdan can help me here, maybe he has more suggestions, I don't know.
That's a tough question. It's a tough question because from all the experience I had...
I think that, I think that you also agree that it's difficult for Romania and for our doctors to be on the same page with us.
Yeah, it's difficult, it's not impossible. We all know this. Can I speak now?
Yes.
Of course you can.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to check if Anna wants to say something else. So, in my point of view, there's a few things that I would that just I'm looking at. One is that the cohort is hard to educate, just because, in my opinion, it seems to be stuck in their life, which is very complex. Another thing where I would look is the school, the education. For now in Romania, we have some, say, vital debates on whether or not to have religion in school, whether or not to have sex education in school, sexual life education, something like this, in school. And I think that linked to this is also how we promote living with HIV in school, like how we can make healthy people not to discriminate, how we can make healthy people not to engage in sexual behavior without protection, and things like this. I think is strongly related to education. And as Anna reminded, is the relationship between doctors and patients, because in my point of view, one of the big reasons or issues we face is this thing, relationship between doctors or hospital and patients, especially for the cohort, but not only. Doctors are still on their bubble, and patients are just too afraid to express themselves, to speak. They're really afraid. So we should focus on the education on people with HIV to feel self-respected, because I'm not sure if they really feel self-respected. I don't know, I have the feeling that I lost you. I have many mixed
No, no,
emotions.
no, no, no. You're here.
Okay. Um, would you mind to repeat the question, please, so I can...
No, I can. I mean, my question was what we can do more or better in order to convey this information.
Okay.
But I think that you gave a pretty good answer to this. And
Yeah.
I would like to direct my next question
Sorry,
to
sorry,
Danny
Thomas.
about. No, go
Sorry,
ahead. Go
Thomas.
ahead.
So just to summarize everything, I would have three strategies. Education on self-respect, say, for people with HIV. Education in school for not engaging unprotected, unpro- unprotected, whatever, in sex behavior, and some sort of education for doctors. That's it.
Okay, that makes sense. Danny, what I wanted to ask from you is, to what extent are you working together with networks of people living with HIV in Ukraine? Because there are large and strong groups of people there. Do you have any contact, or do you work together on specific projects?
What do you mean, Tamash? Contact with concretely, I mean, guys from the occupied territories, or?
Yeah, I mean, contact with, for example, with the network of people, with the Ukrainian network of people living with HIV and other patient groups, perhaps.
You mean on occupied territory? Well, I have only personal contacts of different, I mean, workers, but no, we actually have no projects on this territory actually, because it's even no statistics. We can, the situation on the eastern region of the Ukraine. So I know only personal contacts of workers from those territories, but not the organizations.
All right, thank you. It would also probably politically be risky, I would assume, if you, as young people, would undertake this kind of reach out work in that particular region. Do you guys have any other questions or comments to make before we end this session today? Now is the time. Because if you don't, and if there are no questions from the attendees, then I would like to remind you once again that all the materials, all the presentations, slide decks and talks from the conference are available on www.agingwithhiv.com and also on the EATG website, which is www.eatg.org. And everything will also be included in the EATG newsletter. Don't forget to subscribe to the EATG newsletter, which you can once again do on the EATG website, or just follow us on our social media outlets on Facebook and on Twitter, where we will serve you the latest news about the Aging Project and everything else that the EATG has been doing on practically a daily, almost an hourly basis. So all materials are available on our websites, including videos and video materials, and we will also upload this very webinar to the same websites in a couple of days as soon as we download and edit it. And I would like to thank you once again very much, especially to the panelists and the speakers who participated in this meeting, and a very special thanks to Maria Dutart from the EATG, who organized the webinar and was silently taking care of all the logistics in the background. And I hope to see you and talk to you again very soon. Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for being here with us. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.